Picture this. You've been married for 5 years to a woman you love deeply. You have a good job, a nice house, and from the outside your marriage looks perfect. But behind closed doors, there's a devastating reality that's slowly destroying your relationship and your self-esteem. Every time you try to initiate physical contact, a hug, a kiss, even holding hands, she finds an excuse to pull away. She dodges your affection, makes excuses to avoid intimacy, and treats your touch like it's unwelcome. You start to wonder, am I unattractive to her? Did I do something wrong? Is there someone else? But here's what you don't realize. This isn't about you, your attractiveness, or your marriage. This is about a hidden crisis that's destroying millions of marriages from the inside out, and nobody is talking about it. What if I told you that your wife's rejection of your physical affection isn't personal? What if I told you that millions of women in happy marriages are experiencing a biological stress response to their husband's touch, and they don't even understand why? And what if I told you that understanding this hidden dynamic could save your marriage and restore the intimacy you've lost? Today I'm going to expose the secret crisis that's destroying modern marriages behind closed doors. This isn't about relationship advice or communication techniques. This is about understanding the psychological and biological mechanisms that cause women to reject physical intimacy with their husbands, even when they love them deeply. By the end of this video, you'll understand why your wife might be avoiding your touch, why this problem is epidemic in modern marriages, and most importantly, what you can do to create the safety and connection that allows intimacy to flourish naturally. Pay attention, because what you're about to learn could be the key to saving your marriage and understanding your wife's behavior in a completely new way. Before we dive into the psychology behind this phenomenon, you need to understand the scope of this problem. We're not just talking about dead bedrooms or sexless marriages. We're talking about wives who avoid all physical contact with their husbands, hugging, kissing, cuddling, hand-holding, or any form of affectionate touch. The scope of the problem. This issue affects millions of marriages where couples appear happy and functional on the surface. These aren't abusive relationships or marriages in crisis. These are ordinary couples where the husband is a good man, the wife is a good woman, they love each other, but something fundamental has broken down in their physical connection. The husband experiences constant rejection and begins to feel unwanted, unattractive, and confused. The wife experiences guilt, shame, and confusion about why she doesn't want her husband's touch. Both partners suffer in silence because this topic is rarely discussed openly. The misunderstanding cycle. Most couples trapped in this dynamic completely misunderstand what's happening. The husband assumes his wife doesn't find him attractive anymore, or doesn't love him. The wife assumes there's something wrong with her, that she's broken, abnormal, or has some kind of psychological issue. This misunderstanding creates a vicious cycle. The more the husband pursues physical intimacy, the more the wife withdraws. The more she withdraws, the more rejected and desperate he becomes. Neither partner understands the real mechanism driving this dynamic, the silent suffering. Perhaps the most tragic aspect of this crisis is how isolated both partners feel. They don't talk to friends or family about it because it's too personal and shameful. They don't seek help because they don't understand what's wrong. They suffer in silence, growing more disconnected and resentful over time. To understand why wives avoid physical intimacy, you need to understand what's actually happening in their nervous system when their husband initiates contact. Fight, flight, or freeze. When many wives are approached by their husbands for physical intimacy, their nervous system activates a stress response. This isn't conscious or intentional. It's an automatic biological reaction that occurs below the level of awareness. Their body might experience increased heart rate and blood pressure, muscle tension, and the urge to escape, cortisol release creating stress and anxiety. An overwhelming desire to avoid or end the contact, physical discomfort or revulsion to touch. This is the opposite of what should happen during intimate contact. Instead of oxytocin, the bonding hormone, and feelings of connection, she's experiencing adrenaline and the desire to flee. The confusion factor. What makes this so confusing for both partners is that this stress response can occur even when the wife consciously wants to be close to her husband. She might logically know that he's a good man who loves her, but her nervous system is responding as if she's in danger. This creates internal conflict where her mind says one thing, but her body responds completely differently. She can't understand why she's reacting this way, which leads to shame and self-blame. The automatic response. This stress response is automatic and involuntary. She's not choosing to feel this way or trying to hurt her husband. Her nervous system is simply responding to environmental cues that signal danger or threat, even when no conscious threat exists. Understanding this biological reality is crucial because it means this isn't about love, attraction, or relationship satisfaction. It's about nervous system activation and the perception of safety. The core issue driving this intimacy crisis is what I call safety deficit, the absence of conditions that allow a woman's nervous system to relax and be receptive to physical intimacy. What safety really means. When we talk about safety in relationships, we're not just talking about physical safety from harm. We're talking about a complex psychological and emotional state that includes feeling in control of when and how physical contact occurs, having the freedom to say no without consequences, not feeling pressured or coerced into intimacy, feeling emotionally connected before physical contact, having her boundaries respected and honoured, feeling valued beyond her physical availability. The modern safety challenge. Modern marriages often fail to create these safety conditions, not because the husband is abusive or dangerous, but because they don't understand how female nervous systems respond to intimacy. Many husbands approach physical intimacy the way they would want it approached, directly, spontaneously, and focused on the physical act. But female nervous systems often require different conditions to feel safe enough for intimacy. The environmental factors. Safety isn't just about the husband's behaviour, it's about the entire environment surrounding intimacy. This includes the emotional climate of the relationship, the presence or absence of pressure and expectations, the balance of power and control in intimate situations, the woman's stress levels and mental state, the physical environment and context of intimate contact. When these environmental factors don't support safety, even the most loving husband can trigger a stress response in his wife. One of the most damaging aspects of this intimacy crisis is how it leads women to pathologize themselves rather than examining the environmental factors that create the problem. The internalization of blame. When women experience this aversion to their husband's touch, they typically assume something is wrong with them. They might think, I must have some kind of psychological problem. Maybe I have unresolved trauma from my past. I'm not normal for not wanting my husband's affection. There must be something broken in me sexually. This self-blame is reinforced by cultural messaging that tells women they should always be available and receptive to their husband's advances. The therapy chase. Many women spend years in therapy trying to fix themselves, exploring past trauma, childhood experiences, or psychological issues that might explain their aversion to intimacy. While therapy can be valuable, it often misses the point entirely. The problem isn't usually rooted in the woman's past or psychology. It's rooted in the present environment and the conditions surrounding intimacy in her marriage. The medical model. Mistake. Our culture's tendency to medicalize relationship problems leads to treating intimacy, aversion as a disorder, to be cured rather than a natural response to environmental conditions that don't support safety and connection. This medical model approach often makes the problem worse by adding shame and pathology to what might be a completely normal nervous system response to an unsafe environment. Another factor that complicates this intimacy crisis is the subtle gaslighting that often occurs around women's feelings and perceptions. Dismissing her reality. When women express discomfort, reluctance, or aversion to physical intimacy, their feelings are often dismissed or minimized. You're being too sensitive. You're overthinking this. You're making this into a bigger deal than it is. You need to just relax and stop analyzing everything. This invalidation teaches women not to trust their own nervous system responses and to override their natural safety mechanisms. The good husband defense. Many women are told that because they have a good husband who loves them and provides for them, they shouldn't have any issues with intimacy. This creates guilt and confusion when they do experience resistance. Having a good husband doesn't automatically create the safety conditions necessary for intimacy. A man can be loving, faithful, and well-intentioned, while still approaching intimacy in ways that trigger his wife's stress response. Cultural conditioning. Women are culturally conditioned to be accommodating, pleasing, and sexually available to their husbands, regardless of their own comfort level. This conditioning makes it difficult for them to recognize and honor their own safety needs. A crucial aspect of creating safety for intimacy is ensuring that women have control over when, how, and under what circumstances physical contact occurs. The autonomy principle. Female nervous systems are highly sensitive to autonomy and choice. When women feel like they don't have control over their physical experiences, their stress response activates automatically. This doesn't mean they don't want intimacy. It means they need to feel like participants rather than the objects in intimate encounters. Boundary violations. Many well-intentioned husbands inadvertently violate their wives' boundaries by initiating contact when she's stressed or overwhelmed, continuing physical advances when she's shown reluctance, making physical contact without checking in first, assuming that being married gives them unlimited access to her body. These boundary violations, even minor ones, can accumulate over time and create a general sense of unsafety around physical intimacy. The consent continuum. True intimacy requires ongoing consent, not just initial consent. A woman might consent to holding hands, but not to more intimate contact. She might be comfortable with affection in private, but not in public. Respecting these nuanced boundaries is essential for creating the safety that allows intimacy to flourish. Before we continue exploring this critical issue, if this information is helping you understand your relationship dynamics better, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. I'm sharing insights about marriage and female psychology that most men never learn, and your support helps me continue bringing you this crucial knowledge that could save your relationship. Understanding the biological difference between stress and bonding responses is crucial for creating the conditions that support intimacy. The oxytocin connection. When conditions are right, physical intimacy should trigger the release of oxytocin, the bonding hormone that creates feelings of connection, trust, and well-being. This is the biological foundation of intimate bonding. Oxytocin is released when a person feels safe, connected, and in control of their experience. It creates a positive feedback loop where intimacy feels good and leads to desire for more intimacy. The cortisol problem. When safety conditions aren't met, physical intimacy triggers cortisol release instead of oxytocin. Cortisol is the stress hormone that prepares the body for danger and creates feelings of anxiety and the desire to escape. This creates a negative feedback loop where intimacy feels stressful and leads to avoidance of future intimate contact. The nervous system switch. The difference between these two responses isn't about the specific physical acts involved, it's about the conditions and context surrounding those acts. The same touch that triggers oxytocin under safe conditions can trigger cortisol under unsafe conditions. This is why focusing on technique or frequency often misses the point entirely. The issue isn't how to touch, but how to create the conditions that make touch feel safe and welcome. Most approaches to intimacy problems focus on fixing the individuals involved, rather than examining and changing the environmental conditions that create the problem. The individual treatment fallacy. Traditional approaches often focus on treating the woman for dysfunction or trauma, teaching the man better communication skills, prescribing medication for low libido, scheduling more date nights or romantic gestures. While these interventions might help, they often miss the core issue. The environment surrounding intimacy doesn't support safety and connection. The environmental solution. An environmental approach examines the power dynamics around intimate decision-making, the presence or absence of pressure and expectations, the timing and context of intimate approaches, the overall emotional climate of the relationship, the respect for boundaries and autonomy. Changing these environmental factors often resolves intimacy issues more effectively than individual treatment. The system perspective. From a system perspective, intimacy avoidance isn't a problem with the woman or even the couple. It's a problem with the system and conditions surrounding intimacy. When you change the system to support safety, connection, and autonomy, intimacy often returns naturally without any individual intervention. It's important to understand that while intimacy avoidance is common in modern marriages, it's not natural or inevitable. The normalization problem. Many couples accept intimacy problems as normal parts of marriage. This is just what happens after you've been married for a while. Women naturally lose interest in sex as they get older. It's normal for couples to become less affectionate over time. This normalization prevents couples from recognizing that something in their system needs to change. The natural state. The natural state for humans in safe, connected relationships is to enjoy physical intimacy and affection. When this isn't happening, it's a signal that something in the environment is interfering with natural bonding processes. The recovery possibility, understanding that intimacy avoidance isn't natural, gives hope that it can be changed. When the right conditions are created, most couples can restore physical connection and intimacy. When women have been experiencing stress responses to intimacy for extended periods, their nervous system needs time to recalibrate and remember what natural desire feels like. The healing timeline. Recovery from intimacy aversion isn't instantaneous. Even when safety conditions are established, it takes time for the nervous system to unlearn automatic stress responses, rebuild positive associations with physical contact, rediscover natural desires and preferences, develop trust in the new safety conditions. The space requirement. Part of the recalibration process requires space and freedom from pressure. Women need permission to explore their own desires without the expectation of meeting their husband's needs. This might mean periods of reduced physical intimacy while she reconnects with her own body and preferences. The discovery phase. Many women who have been avoiding intimacy have lost touch with what they actually want and enjoy. The recalibration process involves rediscovering what types of touch feel good when she's most receptive to physical connection, what environmental conditions support her desire, how to communicate her needs and boundaries. For men experiencing this intimacy crisis, understanding your wife's experience requires a significant shift in perspective. The rejection interpretation. Most men interpret their wife's intimacy avoidance as personal rejection. She doesn't find me attractive anymore. She doesn't love me the way she used to. I must be doing something wrong. Maybe there's someone else. While these feelings are understandable, they usually misinterpret what's actually happening. The safety lens. When you understand that your wife's behavior is likely a safety response rather than rejection, it changes everything. Her avoidance isn't about your attractiveness. Her resistance isn't about her love for you. Her discomfort isn't about your worth as a husband. Her stress response isn't about your relationship quality. The patience requirement, creating safety and supporting your wife's recalibration, requires patience that can be challenging for men who are feeling rejected and disconnected. Understanding the biological and psychological processes involved can help you maintain patience and compassion during the recovery period. Now let's discuss practical ways to create the environmental conditions that support intimacy and connection. Removing pressure. The first step is removing all pressure and expectations around physical intimacy. Stop initiating contact when she's stressed or distracted. Avoid making her feel guilty for not being affectionate. Don't interpret every interaction as potentially leading to intimacy. Give her permission to say no without consequences. Respecting autonomy. Demonstrate respect for her autonomy and control. Ask before initiating physical contact. Accept her responses without argument or pressure. Let her initiate contact sometimes. Respect her timing and preferences. Building emotional safety. Create conditions that support emotional safety. Listen to her concerns without defensiveness. Validate her feelings and experiences. Avoid criticism or judgment about her intimacy, preferences. Create space for honest communication about her needs, addressing environmental stress. Consider other stressors that might be affecting her nervous system. Work stress and overwhelm, childcare responsibilities and exhaustion, financial worries or concerns, health issues or hormonal changes. Addressing these broader stressors can help create conditions that support intimacy. As a husband dealing with this intimacy crisis, your role in supporting recovery is crucial, but requires a significant mindset shift. From pursuer to safe haven, instead of pursuing physical intimacy, focus on becoming a safe haven, where your wife can relax and reconnect with her own desires. Be patient with the recovery process. Support her exploration of her own preferences. Celebrate small steps toward connection. Maintain your own emotional stability during the process. Understanding versus fixing your job isn't to fix your wife or solve her intimacy issues. Your job is to understand what's happening and create conditions that support her natural healing process. The long-term perspective. Recovery from intimacy aversion takes time and patience. Maintaining a long-term perspective helps you avoid putting pressure on the process or expecting immediate results. When couples successfully address intimacy avoidance through creating safety, the transformation often extends far beyond physical intimacy. Enhanced connection. Creating safety for physical intimacy often improves emotional connection throughout the relationship. Better communication and understanding, increased trust and emotional safety. More authentic expression of needs and desires, deeper overall intimacy and partnership. Improved individual well-being. Both partners often experience improved well-being when intimacy issues are resolved. Reduced stress and anxiety. Improved self-esteem and confidence. Better physical and mental health. Greater relationship satisfaction. Sustainable change. Because this approach addresses environmental and systemic issues rather than just symptoms, the changes tend to be sustainable over time. Understanding these dynamics can help prevent intimacy problems from developing in future relationships or in the early stages of marriage. Early warning signs. Recognizing early signs of safety deficit. Subtle resistance to physical affection. Decreased spontaneous physical contact. Tension or stress during intimate moments. Avoidance of certain types of physical contact. Proactive safety creation. Building safety into relationships from the beginning. Establishing consent and boundary practices early. Creating regular check-ins about comfort and preferences. Maintaining respect for autonomy throughout the relationship. Addressing stress and environmental factors proactively. While many couples can address intimacy issues by creating safety and changing environmental factors, professional help is sometimes necessary. When to seek help. Consider professional support when safety measures don't improve the situation over time, there are underlying trauma issues that need specific treatment, communication breaks down completely, the stress is affecting other areas of life significantly. Choosing the right approach. Look for professionals who understand the environmental factors affecting intimacy, nervous system responses and trauma-informed care, the importance of safety and autonomy in intimate relationships, systems approaches rather than just individual treatment. This intimacy crisis reflects broader cultural issues about sexuality, consent, and relationships that need to be addressed at a societal level. Cultural messages. Our culture sends mixed messages about intimacy. Women should be sexually available, but also maintain boundaries. Marriage implies consent, but individual autonomy still matters. Physical intimacy should be natural, but we don't teach how to create supporting conditions. Educational gaps. Most people never learn about how nervous systems respond to intimacy, the conditions that support versus hinder physical connection, the difference between pressure and invitation in intimate relationships, how to create ongoing consent and safety. The need for new models. We need new models for understanding and approaching intimacy that prioritize safety, autonomy, and mutual pleasure over obligation and performance. Despite the challenges involved in addressing intimacy avoidance, there is tremendous hope for couples dealing with this issue. The natural capacity. Most people have the natural capacity for intimate connection when the right conditions are present. This isn't about learning new skills or fixing broken people. It's about creating environments that support natural bonding processes, the recovery potential. With understanding, patience, and commitment to creating safety, most couples can restore physical intimacy and connection to their relationships, the relationship enhancement. Often, couples who work through intimacy issues end up with stronger, more connected relationships than they had before the problems developed. If you recognize these dynamics in your own marriage, here are concrete steps you can take to begin creating change. Stop initiating physical contact for a defined period. Have an honest conversation about safety and comfort. Ask your wife what would help her feel safer in intimate situations. Remove all pressure and expectations around physical intimacy. Focus on emotional connection and non-physical expressions of love. Address environmental stresses affecting your wife establish new patterns of consent and boundary respect, support her exploration of her own desires and preferences, work on your own emotional regulation and patience, consider professional help if needed, maintain respect for autonomy and consent, continue checking in about comfort and safety, address relationship dynamics that undermine safety, stay patient with the ongoing nature of this work, celebrate progress and connection rather than focusing on problems. Here's the ultimate truth about the intimacy crisis in modern marriages. It's not about broken women or inadequate men, it's about environments that don't support the natural human capacity for intimate connection. When we understand that intimacy avoidance is usually a nervous system response to safety deficit, rather than a personal rejection or psychological disorder, everything changes. Instead of trying to fix or change your wife, you can focus on creating the conditions that allow her natural desire and connection to emerge. Pursuing to providing safety, fixing to understanding, pressure to patience, performance to presence, control to consent. This isn't just about restoring physical intimacy, it's about creating relationships based on mutual respect, safety, and authentic connection rather than obligation and performance. If this video has opened your eyes to the hidden dynamics destroying intimacy in modern marriages, smash that like button and subscribe for more content that reveals the psychological truths behind relationship challenges. Share this with other men who might be struggling with intimacy issues in their marriages. Understanding these dynamics could save relationships and restore the connection that both partners truly want. Your engagement helps spread this crucial information to couples who desperately need it. Until next time, focus on creating safety rather than seeking intimacy, and watch how everything changes. Remember, the goal isn't to get more physical affection from your wife, it's to create conditions where she feels safe enough that affection becomes something she naturally wants to share. When you approach the problem from this perspective, you'll often find that the intimacy you've been seeking returns naturally as a byproduct of the safety you've created.